He fought for his country for 6 years. But when he returned, his own daughter stood in the sun with a suitcase, and his wife screamed, "Get out! What do you do when the battlefield follows you home?" Jack Thompson stepped out of the truck after 6 long years stationed on the border, where gunfire and orders had once been the background noise of his life. But nothing in that war zone had prepared him for what greeted him at home. A small, silent figure on the front steps. His daughter, Emily, stood alone under the harsh sunlight, gripping a worn-out teddy bear and a small suitcase. On the porch, Rachel, his wife, who once promised to wait for him, didn't even hesitate. "Get out!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the air like shrapnel. In that instant, a silent earthquake rumbled through Jack's world. This wasn't a welcome. This was exile. Emily's face didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She just stood there, her shadow trembling under the sun, eyes dry but full of silent questions. Rachel's voice cracked again. If he dared step inside, the door would never open for him again. But as he looked into Emily's eyes, he saw something he hadn't seen in years. Hope barely hanging on. He stepped forward, slowly, a faded army duffel slung across his shoulder, and whispered her name. Emily. Her eyes met his, flickered with recognition, then retreated into guarded silence. Rachel, caught off guard, straightened herself, forced a fake smile, and claimed it was all a joke. Jack said nothing. He walked toward Emily, rested a rough hand on her tiny shoulder, and she leaned into him. No words, no tears, just a quiet trust being remembered. And then, with a suitcase light from years of neglect, Jack stepped inside a house that once was a home. Inside, the living room was untouched by time but drained of warmth. The old landscape painting still hung crookedly, and the air held the coldness of distance. Jack placed Emily's suitcase by the chair and dropped his own to the floor, looking at Rachel for the first time. "We need to talk," he said. She nodded stiffly, heading to the kitchen, pretending everything was fine. "Coffee?" she asked, voice brittle. Emily sat quietly on the sofa, hugging her teddy bear, eyes alert but unreadable. Rachel returned with 2 cups and forced a smile that never reached her eyes. Jack sipped but didn't respond. Instead, he asked, "How's Emily been?" Rachel shrugged, dismissive, stubborn like all kids. He asked about school. "When I'm not busy," she goes. She knows the way. Jack's hands tightened. Then he asked about the money, his military pay he'd sent home every month. Rachel bristled, offended. "You think I can't support my child?" He didn't argue. He only asked, "Is there anything you want to say to me honestly?" Rachel turned away. Everything's the same. But everything wasn't. That night, over a dinner of instant noodles, Emily barely ate. When Jack gently asked about her drawings, Rachel interrupted with scorn. She quit those silly classes. Wasting money. Emily shrank into silence. After Rachel went upstairs with a headache, Jack found a box of broken colored pencils tucked on the bookshelf. Some were snapped, some used to the nub, and at the bottom lay a drawing of a red-roofed house and a child holding hands with a man. Emily whispered, "Mom said not to waste paper." Jack stared at the drawing, his chest heavy with the weight of all the words left unspoken. That night, Jack spread a blanket on the living room sofa. Long cracks stretched across the ceiling like branches of regret. Near midnight, soft footsteps echoed on the floor. Emily stood nearby, holding a blanket and her teddy bear. Without a word, Jack lifted the edge of his blanket and she crawled in. "Can I sleep here with you, Dad?" she asked. Jack nodded, wrapping his arm around her, holding her gently, like a breath he didn't want to disturb. the room filled with quiet breathing and the whisper of wind outside. For the first time in years, Jack felt the presence of something fragile but real. A chance. The next morning, Rachel was different. She woke up early, cooked breakfast, and smiled like the past had never happened. "Did you sleep well?" she asked Emily sweetly, who only nodded, eyes darting toward Jack. Later, Jack took Emily into town. They visited a small bookstore, passed by an old neighbor, Mr. Walter, who only said, "The child will be better off now," and walked away. In the afternoon, Rachel went out again, and Jack helped Emily clean her room. He found an old, crumpled Mother's Day card hidden deep in a drawer. A child's handwriting scrawled, "I love you forever." Emily said, "Mom said don't draw stupid things." Jack held the card like it was a piece of glass. That night, Emily made buttered toast for him. "I can do it, Dad," she said. It was simple, but Jack could feel the quiet hope in her gesture. The next day, on the second-floor balcony, Jack looked out over the town and knew he couldn't stay silent anymore. Jack returned to his old workspace, cleaned it out, and found a plastic box labeled, "For M. Jack." Inside were unfinished letters and drawings from Emily he never received. A family of 3 under a blue sky, a red truck, a man carrying a little girl. "For Dad when Dad comes home," one scribbled line said. He folded them gently, like something sacred. That afternoon, he and Emily drove to a quiet lake at the edge of the forest. They ate sandwiches on a boulder. Emily spoke more about school, about a math test, about walking home alone. Jack said only one thing, "I'm sorry I let you walk alone all this time." Emily smiled a real smile. That night, when they returned, Rachel accused Jack of trying to steal her daughter. He didn't argue. He just asked, "Do you even know what she's going through? Her health? Her school?" Rachel didn't respond. She ran upstairs. The next few days, Rachel pretended to be a perfect mother. Cleaned the house, made lunch, asked about school. But it was rehearsed, not real. Jack could see through the script. And every evening, Rachel disappeared again. Emily's world, however, began to bloom. Slowly, quietly. She smiled more, drew more. Jack saw 2 worlds forming. One that was healing, and one that was slipping away. And he knew soon he'd have to choose which world to protect. One weekend, Jack sat in his workspace, tapping a pen against blank paper as he called the bank. "Your account is active," the operator said. Funds transferred monthly without issue. But when Jack asked for transaction history, the answer chilled him. The account was nearly empty, withdrawals, POS payments, random purchases. He requested full statements for the past 3 years. That afternoon, a knock came. Megan Ellis, Emily's old teacher. She brought books and comic books she'd saved for Emily. The girl's face lit up with pure joy. Later, when Megan and Jack sat alone, her voice turned serious. "I worried about Emily," she said. "She never complained, so no one could intervene. But I called. I tried." Her eyes softened. "She's very good, Jack. She just needs someone to believe in her." As she left, Megan said, "She doesn't need a perfect father, just one who stays." Jack stood silently, her words sinking deep. That evening, he invited Rachel and Emily for dinner. Rachel wore a wine-colored dress, pretending like nothing was wrong. She chatted about weekend parks and new playgrounds. But Emily said nothing, her smile polite, mechanical. Throughout the dinner, Rachel checked her phone, answered calls from the balcony. Jack stared at the glow of the street lamp outside. The house felt less like a home and more like a place they were pretending to live in. That night, He sat in the quiet again and wrote a letter to Rachel. Being gone was my mistake, but what keeps me awake is realizing I wasn't the only one who disappeared. The next day it rained heavily. Jack got a call from Megan. Has Emily come home yet? Panic struck. She wasn't at school, no one had picked her up. Jack rushed through the storm, not to the school, but home, hoping Rachel had. But Rachel was sitting on the couch with a friend, beer in hand, laughter echoing from the TV. I thought you picked her up, she said, unfazed. Jack didn't yell. He just turned and walked back into the rain. He searched alleyways, bus stops, the edge of town. Finally, behind an old warehouse, he found her, soaked, huddled under a metal roof, clutching her teddy bear. I waited for Mum. No one came, she whispered. Jack wrapped his arms around her, shielding her from the cold and the silence she'd known for far too long. That night, no words were spoken. But the next day, Jack placed divorce papers on the kitchen table. Rachel didn't scream. She only asked, So, you've decided? Jack nodded. She muttered, I'm not done yet. He didn't reply. 3 weeks later, the courtroom fell into tense silence. Rachel accused him of abandonment, of trying to steal Emily. But the documents, the bank records, the teacher reports, the witness statements spoke louder. Mr. Walter, the quiet neighbor, said simply, I heard the girl crying while they were laughing and drinking. In the end, the gavel fell. Full custody to Jack. Rachel broke down, lunging at Emily, screaming, You're mine! But Emily pulled back, clutching Jack's hand. Mom, don't be like this, she whispered. And for the first time, Jack held his daughter knowing she was truly his, not by law but by choice. Jack didn't take much with him, just clothes, a few books, and all of Emily's drawings. At the gate of his mother's house, Margaret stood in a floral dress. She didn't ask questions. She just opened her arms and whispered, Come here, my dear granddaughter. Emily leaned into the embrace, and something inside her began to mend. In her new room, Jack set up a drawing board labeled M's Corner. Every day she drew the eaves, the trees, the sky, sometimes arms reaching out with no faces. When asked who they were, she replied, The people who don't speak, but wait for me. Her new school was small, kind. The teacher bent to eye level. Her classmates offered snacks, shared crayons. Emily joined the art club. Jack took a job at the community center teaching first aid and career prep. Mornings began with eggs and buttered toast made together. Evenings were filled with blue paint on fences and silly names for garden corners. This is our sea, Emily said once, painting waves. One day, she drew a picture. A small house with 3 shadows, 2 standing close, 1 facing away. It wasn't anger, it was memory. Meanwhile, Rachel moved into a tiny flat above an abandoned bakery. Her calls to old friends went unanswered. One replied bluntly, We're not close anymore. One evening, Rachel sat on a park bench where Emily had once waited for her in vain, and she wept, slow, quiet tears. Later, she read Emily's returned letter from the court. It said, I think you also need someone like Dad has been to me. I'm not angry, just a little sad. But it's okay. Rachel crumpled to the floor. Broken by grace she no longer knew how to hold. Autumn colored the town in gold. Emily entered her first art competition, naming her painting, When I'm Not Being Chased Away Anymore. Jack never asked why. He didn't need to. One rainy evening, Rachel called. Jack handed the phone to Emily. Her answers were short but kind. I draw now. Dad's home. After she hung up, she asked, If Mum's tired, Can we still love her? Jack nodded. Loving doesn't mean forgetting. That weekend, she drew two birds, one flying low, one high, both toward the light. I forgive you, she whispered. In winter, a knock at the gate revealed a soaked, exhausted Rachel. I just want to see Emily, she said. Jack let her. Emily walked to the door, taller now, steadier.
Rachel sobbed, I'm sorry.
I didn't appreciate what I had. Emily didn't hug her. She didn't flinch either. She gently laid a hand on her mother's shoulder. I'm not angry anymore. That sentence broke Rachel. She left quietly. Sometimes she visited briefly, awkwardly. Emily smiled, but from a distance. And in the house in Asheville, Emily kept drawing. One picture showed three people standing apart with light in the middle. Family, she wrote, isn't always together, but love can still find its way back. On the porch, Jack and Emily would sit quietly, sipping cocoa, watching the wind blow through lavender. Emily once said, I like evenings here. They're not noisy anymore. Jack replied, because now we don't have to listen to things we don't need to hear. And so they stayed. Two people, a pencil, a place to begin again, not perfect but whole. Sometimes love doesn't scream, it stays. And sometimes forgiveness is the only way to grow without carrying a weight that was never yours. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll. Share it. Someone out there is waiting to feel understood.